You're invited to step back in time some 4,000 years to explore the ancient land of the Bible, what we now call the Middle East, and to meet legendary people whose stories have influenced millions of lives throughout history. You'll see how God leads Abraham to his ultimate test of faith. Will he sacrifice his son at the Lord's command? You'll meet Abraham's son Isaac, whose twin sons Esau and Jacob, in a lifetime of conflict, battle for their birthright and their father's blessing. And you'll meet Jacob's handsome and compassionate son Joseph, sold as a slave into Egypt by his brothers, who eventually becomes one of the most powerful men in the court of Pharaoh. These are tales of intrigue, full of twists and turns, lies and deceptions, drama and passion. They are an integral part of history's most revered work of literature, the Bible. First, the story of Abraham and Sarah. We'll travel from the ancient Babylonian city of Ur, which is in modern-day Iraq, north to the city of Haran, in the region we now call southern Turkey, and then finally south into the land of Canaan, today part of Israel and Lebanon. This episode marks a great turning point in biblical history as God singles out one man and his family to receive his special revelation, care, and promises. What was so special about Abraham and Sarah, who were chosen to give birth not only to a great nation, but also to one of the most inspirational spiritual revolutions of all time? Actually, Abraham and Sarah were quite human, and even though he questioned and from time to time challenged the will of God, Abraham continued to exhibit faith, gratitude, and a unique loyalty to God on such a monumental scale that he deserves to be called, as he is, the father of us all. Our story begins in the city of Ur, in what is today Iraq. Here is where Abraham and Sarah spent their early years, about 2,000 years before the birth of Christ. The concept of one God had not yet been widely accepted, and they were surrounded by people who worshipped idols. In his waning years, Abraham's father, Terah, decided to move from Ur to the land of Canaan. So he took with him Abraham, Sarah, and his grandson Lot. They first traveled northward some 500 miles to Haran. Today, Haran is called Tel El Mugayar in southeastern Turkey. They settled there, and that is where Terah died. As the years went by, Abraham and Sarah lived an ordinary pastoral life, but there remained a tremendous void in their lives. They were never able to have children. When Abraham was 75 years old, God challenged him to his first test of faith. In Genesis 12:1, the Lord said to Abraham,
"Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great."
Abraham left his homeland in Haran to embark on a treacherous journey of some 400 miles south to the land of Canaan. His faith was strong, and he did as God commanded. With no maps to guide him, and not knowing the languages, he had to barter for provisions as he traveled through strange and sometimes hostile lands. When the caravan reached Canaan, God once again appeared, and in Genesis 12:7, the Lord said to Abraham,
"To your offspring I will give this land."
Abraham continued his journey through the land of Canaan to the oak of Moreh at Shechem, and to the mountains to the east of Bethel, where he built altars, a tribute to his faith in God. As time passed, however, Abraham's faith appeared to waver. Here he was, as God had led him, in a foreign land surrounded by pagans, and he and Sarah still childless. How was he to give this land to his offspring when he didn't have any land and he didn't have any children? And to make matters even worse, a severe famine swept through Canaan. Abraham and Sarah could not survive if they were to remain in Canaan. Not waiting for any divine message, Abraham took Sarah and Lot and the rest of his household and went down to the more fertile land of Egypt, where there was sure to be food. Before entering Egypt, Abraham had known about the killing of husbands and the kidnapping of wives. Not yet ready to trust completely in God's promise to ensure his safety, that evening Abraham devised a plot that may very well have saved his life. He told Sarah, "You are a beautiful woman, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Tell them instead, 'You are my sister.'" Just as Abraham had feared, the caravan was stopped as they entered Egypt. And when the officials of Pharaoh saw Sarah, they were impressed with her beauty and took her into Pharaoh's household. She was prepared for her introduction. When she was presented to Pharaoh, he was taken with her exotic appearance and the fact that she was a stranger in his land. Of course, he had no idea that she was the wife of Abraham. Pharaoh had been told she was unmarried, and he took her for his wife. What was Sarah to do? She could not protest, for to do so she would have endangered Abraham. As time went on, the pleased Pharaoh rewarded Abraham with generous gifts. Gifts of camels, sheep, oxen, slaves, and donkeys. But then, Pharaoh and his entire household suddenly became deathly ill. Because of his sin with Sarah, the Lord had afflicted Pharaoh and his people with great plagues, even though Pharaoh had no knowledge that Sarah was indeed Abraham's wife. The hurt and angry Pharaoh summoned Abraham and blamed him for the plagues. "What is this you have done to me?" he cried. "Why did you not tell me Sarah was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister so that I took her for my wife? Here is your wife then. Take her and be gone." It was a wealthier and more prosperous Abraham who took his family and returned to the land of Canaan. By then, Abraham and Lot, who was with him, owned so much cattle that their herdsmen were fighting each other for choice grazing lands. In a generous gesture befitting the benevolence of a true patriarch, Abraham took Lot to a point overlooking the land and said, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herders and mine, for we are kindred. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the land to the left, then I will take the land to the right. Or if you take the right, I will go to the left." The young Lot chose the better site, the rich and fertile land of Jordan, described in the Bible as well-watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot settled among the cities of the plain and moved his tent as far as Sodom, and Abraham settled in Canaan. In Genesis 13:14, the Lord said to Abraham,
Raise your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Rise up, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I will give it to you.
Abraham led his household through the land of Canaan and eventually set up his tents in Mamre, as he was commanded by God. Here Abraham built an altar to the Lord. It was there that this patriarch of peace was drawn into battle. In the valley of Siddim, in the area near the southern end of the Dead Sea, near the peninsula of Al-Isam, a mighty war was being waged. The armies of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were routed by their enemies. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah fled to the hills, while the enemy took all their goods and provisions. And along with them, they took Abraham's nephew Lot as a prisoner. One of the soldiers who had escaped came and told Abraham that Lot had been taken captive. That night, Abraham assembled the men of his house, according to the Bible, 318 of them, and took off after the enemy. Abraham's army caught up with them, and under the cover of darkness, they attacked. The surprised